Welcome to my channel. This is scary stories from my apartment. I had been living in my apartment for about 3 years. It was a decent 2-bedroom place on the 3rd floor. Nothing fancy, but it was perfect for just me. One of the bedrooms I used as my actual room, and the other became kind of a junk room. Old clothes, some random boxes, things I didn't feel like dealing with. It was a Friday night, and I got home late from work. I grabbed a frozen pizza out of the freezer, threw it in the oven, and flopped down on the couch to binge a few episodes of a show. Around midnight, I thought I heard a soft tapping sound coming from down the hall. I paused the TV, but after a few seconds of silence, I figured maybe it was the neighbors or the pipes. Old building, weird noises, whatever. I stayed up until maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, and right before I went to bed, I noticed the junk room door was open a crack. I was almost sure I always kept it shut just because it was messy and I didn't like looking at it. I went over, shut the door, and locked my bedroom door before going to sleep, which wasn't something I usually did. A few nights later, I was woken up by a thud, like something falling over. I laid there staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself it was nothing, but the noise had definitely come from inside the apartment. I stayed as still as I could, listening. After a few minutes of silence, I eventually drifted back to sleep. The next morning, I found one of the boxes from the junk room sitting halfway in the hallway. It didn't make sense. I hadn't gone in there, and I lived alone. I started to get that creeping feeling in my gut, but I tried to brush it off. Maybe I just hadn't stacked things properly, and it tipped over. That night I couldn't settle down. I double-checked every door and window, even though I was on the 3rd floor. Around 1 in the morning I heard it again. Movement, slow and deliberate, like footsteps trying to be quiet. I grabbed my phone and crept out of bed. The junk room door was wide open now. I called out, asking if anyone was there, even though my heart was hammering in my chest. No answer. I backed into my room, locked the door, and called the police. When they arrived and searched the place, they found signs that someone had been living in the tiny crawl space above the junk room closet. Blankets, food wrappers, even a phone charger plugged into the outlet up there. Apparently, the insulation up there was pretty thick. The officer said whoever was up there could have easily stayed hidden for quite a while. He also mentioned that since no one else had access to the building's blueprints, I should consider myself lucky. "What do you mean?" I asked. He explained that whoever was living in the crawl space would have had to know exactly where to look to find that hidden access hatch, which meant that either someone had broken into my apartment in the past and left the hatch unlocked, or someone had been watching me. Either way, I was pretty freaked out when I found out about that access hatch. At first, I was mad at my landlord for not making sure the place was secure, but then I realized he didn't have a key to that hatch either. We looked everywhere else, but there were no other signs of forced entry. I even checked the locks on the windows, and although they were old, they seemed to be in good shape and definitely hadn't been tampered with. I was considering calling the locksmith to see if they could tell if the door locks had been picked, but honestly, I was kind of glad to hear that it was probably just some kid playing around. Yeah, it was weird. Someone had obviously been in the apartment, but it didn't seem malicious, so I didn't end up calling anyone. I cleaned out the junk room and moved the boxes out. But to this day, I still wonder who was watching me and why. Thanks for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe for more content and check out these other stories from my apartment.